Hey everyone, we are sitting here with Angry Chicken, Garrett, Dills, Jocelyn, and we are sitting here with Dean, the balance designer on Team 5 for Hearthstone, and also with Derek, the senior UI designer, talking about the new, recently announced League of Explorers adventure. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure, our pleasure. Awesome.
Yeah. Also, Dean, been talking to you for a while, so this is just great that they're actually letting you do interviews.
It's nice. It's nice to be surrounded by my friends. So, yeah, we've known each other for a very long time, so it's cool to be here.
Yeah, you're literally surrounded by your friends right now. We couldn't.
I'm actually surrounded by my friends, so that's good.
Yeah. So I guess kind of our opening kind of question is, why League of Explorers? So far, the trend with the adventures has been based directly on an existing raid or dungeon from World of Warcraft.
And that's exactly why we did that, because, part of Hearthstone is trying to keep the players guessing, keep things interesting. And we had done, these raids and dungeons, and we thought, hey, maybe here's an opportunity for us to give us the players something different, and there's the League of Explorers in WoW, but it hadn't really been explored. And we thought, oh, what makes better sense for an adventure, than creating these 4 crazy guys that can go off through the world and really, get around to different locations, which is also a little bit different for us, and go on this quest, So that's kind of why we did that.
How did you go about actually choosing the locations that you wanted to highlight?
I think it's more like what made sense with the lore of WoW and what kinds of places would have ancient artifacts and what kind of plays into this adventure vibe. So, hidden temples, that's always a good, and jungles is always a good place to go.
So let's talk a little about the brand new mechanic that has been introduced now with this, which is Discover. So for anybody who doesn't understand, it's essentially Discover means you'll be presented 3 options, and you have to choose from those options, and you actually draw that card. And it's a neutral or class minion or a class specific spell, correct? So what was the thinking behind that? What were you guys trying to accomplish with Discover? What was the initial thought behind that?
So I really, really like Discover. Discover is really cool to me. I think some of the most fun way to play Hearthstone is when you have a lot of decisions to make. You have a lot of cards in your hand. You're kind of thinking, what's the best choice for me right now? The problem with introducing a lot of draw cards is you have decks like Freeze Mage and Old Miracle Rogue that are kind of based around, drawing your entire deck. And when you draw your entire deck, the games tend to play out the same. So when you're queuing up, we really don't want you to be like, oh, it's this deck. I know exactly how this entire game is going to play out. So, how do you solve that problem? You introduce cards and we've done this in the past, where you introduce cards like Unstable Portal and Web Spinners. So you have, you have more stuff happens that doesn't happen in the nature of the flow of a normal game, but you have more decisions. I think Discover is another way to do that, but you're actually getting a lot of interesting choices to make as well along the way. It's not just you get something that's really good, or you get something that's not very good. You have kind of a consistent power level of things presented to you, and a lot of times you'll get a choice between do I want something for next turn? Do I want something right now? I'm playing this type of deck, so this card that I wouldn't normally choose or be happy with, maybe that's the right decision for this specific circumstance. So I think just having more cards and more cool decisions to make, and also having strategic value in those decisions is really cool. So I'm really happy with the mechanic because of that.
Yeah, I love the idea behind Discover, because it's within the flow of the game. Within the flow of the game, you can choose I want a Pyroblast pops up, or a Frostbolt, and you're okay, I can kill something next turn with a Frostbolt, or can I get him down to 10 health and finish him off with a Pyroblast? Adding more decisions, I think, is a great mechanic to add to the game.
So you actually mentioned Unstable Portal. Can you just talk to us for a second about why, when you actually use the Discover mechanic, you can only get neutrals and class cards and you don't have access to everything?
Which mag are you?
Black or red?
We did a lot of playtesting with having all the cards. I think another fun thing about Hearthstone is, as you learn more about the game, you have kind of a good idea about what can I expect from this mage? What can I expect from this druid? When we were losing a lot of Discover cards and you could pull from the entire card pool, sometimes you'd be playing a druid and he'd play Tyrion. And that's cool.
It is.
But you can't really prepare for that.
Sure.
So part of the fun part about Hearthstone is being able to like, oh, what can I expect? Like you can actually think about the realm of possibility for like what could this druid have picked? Like what card is this? What could this possibly be? And you can make decisions sort of around that. And when it was the entire card pool, you just couldn't do that. It was just, he could have basically anything, so I'm not even going to try to play around anything. So that's kind of why we made that decision to go towards and plus like class flavor and stuff too. It's a little weird when, rogues start fireballing you and stuff. But it's cool, but I think it's cool enough. Like, we liked it how it is now, and to have more consistent and being able to play around stuff, that was the better decision, I think.
When you play a Discover card and you get the 3 options, is there a chance that there will be any duplicates in the options? Will like 2 angry chickens and a okay?
Yep. Always be different cards.
Gotcha. Wonderful. So, why such an increase in the amount of cards on this particular adventure? Because all the previous adventures has been about 20 some odd cards, and now we're up to 45.
I think it's just, again, like trying to keep things a little bit different and trying to experiment and see, what's the right amount of cards to give. Like, do we go fewer? Do we go more? And how does that affect the meta going forward? Like, just keeping some variety. And also for this adventure, it kind of made sense for the wings. Like that distribution was good for us.
So you just mentioned a little bit of, mixing it up, diversity and stuff. So why did we get no Inspire cards this time? Is that something that you've just kind of moved away from now that TGT is over? Should we expect more of that keyword going forward?
I think it's more about what makes sense for the flavor. So I think we went with a heavy adventure theme, and in this case, it matched for the grand tournament. But then for League of Explorers, they wanted to explore more. Explore.
So much exploring.
Right. So I think they wanted to add Discover, and I think adding too many keywords is also not something we want to do. So in this case, that's just why it wasn't intentional.
All right, we got a balance guy with us, so let's talk about Arena. Was there a focus on, because I noticed 2 warrior cards were common and they're pretty good. Was there a focus on this is a chance now to address some of the balance issues that we've had with Arena that have been brought up by the community, and like how do you guys feel about how these cards are going to affect that? I'm a big Arena player, and it's always something that I'm like, I want that to be somewhat balanced, right? Like, I go into construct and I'm like, just Paladins. Arena, just Paladins. Like, you want it to be like this kind of cool feeling where like they're both totally different, but the flavor. So was that a focus when you were deciding on these cards and the rarities and all that stuff?
Yes.
Yes. Next question.
Yeah, of course.
That question.
Yeah. We realized that Warrior isn't played very often in Arena. And to me, it's not necessarily about like what is the power level of all of these classes. It's about when you queue up into any of these experiences, do you get a varied experience? Do you go in and do you see different stuff? When you're running into Mage every game or Paladin every game, that isn't that a varied experience. And we realized that, and it's a challenge because you only introduce new cards to the environment, whatever like cycle is every 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So changing it slowly over time, I think it's a process. But we are starting to do that. I mean, like adding it is not a coincidence that the warrior commons are what they are.
So there's a 3-4.
Yeah. So that is certainly not a coincidence. We realized that we wanted to deliver on the varied experience. We're always talking about solutions. All of us are Arena players. I'm an Arena player. I think Danae has like 5,000 Arena wins or something. Like totally ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, that's my boss, and we care. We know we don't want to run into Paladins all the time. We don't want to run into Mages all the time. Sure. I think Warrior is always going to have sort of an issue. I think because
the hero power.
Yeah, the hero power is worse than basically every other hero power for Arena. So there's always going to be somewhat of a problem there for Warrior, but we can do better in terms of like introducing stronger, higher power level commons. But we care. We're always thinking about solutions.
Care, you guys. You hear that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know. Like, we know what's going on. Like, we're looking at statistics. We're looking at perception, and all of those things are really important. we want the same thing you guys want. So we're thinking of solutions. Well, I don't have anything to really talk about right now, but we realize like what's going on, and we would like to change that.
Not being ignored. I think that's the big thing that people just want.
Yeah.
You guys are like aware. And thinking.
Yeah, I know it's rough sometimes. It's like, oh, what do you have to announce right now? But we know when we're thinking about it, we're dedicating resources to it. Like, I'm thinking about it all the time. Like, I'm sitting there trying to find solutions. We're talking about it. So.
Yeah.
So speaking of things that we want right now, can you just maybe talk a little bit about your release schedule specifically around adventures, like why it's gated week by week?
Yeah, I think it's just more of a. It's kind of cool, like having this event every week, and I think it's fun for us, anyways. Like to roll it out over time, and not just blah. Here's a bunch of cards, and just give it kind of dole it out, and let the decks change week to week, and I think that's kind of interesting for us, anyways. And it just gives a little bit more ceremony to the whole experience, as opposed to like I said, just throwing a whole bunch of cards at your face and then going at it.
I find the week to week kind of the 4 week, 5 week meta shift like gradually very entertaining. It's a fun time to be playing the game. So Derek, since you're here and you are the senior UI designer, I was curious if there were any. Was there any elements in designing the UI for League of Explorers that was a bit challenging? Like, was it hard to get the staff to show up and build up at the top of the screen? Like,
that's just implementation stuff. So, it's a little bit of a challenge, but the stuff I'm thinking about more is like the higher level stuff. Like how do we deal with new players? How do we keep them, like when we add new content? How do we keep them involved in the game without being overwhelmed? And then on the flip side, also like providing stuff for our more seasoned players, like how do we do that? So there's not a whole lot in League of Explorers, but there's definitely other stuff that's on my plate. Yeah.
Yeah, the new player experience is a topic that comes up quite often, especially when you look at the Reddits of the world and whatnot, where they're constantly asking for new features. But at the end of the day, do you want the Hearthstone box to have 20 buttons on the front? Probably not.
Right. It's a definitely a balance of like, this is what people want, and then but I've also mocked up what it looks like when they get what they want, and so it's kind of
and they don't really want it, guys. You don't want it.
Right. And so, we definitely look at all the stuff on Reddit and see all the solutions people have, and there are definitely solutions to the problems that people have, and there's easy ways to do things like add 9 deck slots or something like that. But that's kind of like my baby, and that's kind of like my I'm very protective of that, especially for the new player, because they're very important for us. That segment of the population is very important for us, and so it's more about the right way to do that. So that's why we're very careful about it. But we are aware of the problems, and we play too. Like we want, like Dean said, we want all this stuff, and we know what the issues are. It's just a matter of doing the right thing for the game, and so that's why.
That's great.
I'm so satisfied with that arena question.
Dean, I was actually curious if I'm assuming since you're a balance designer, you probably play tested a ton of games with the new League of Explorers cards. With Discover specifically, one minor concern might be that if a lot of people are using Discover cards in their decks, so it's both players are playing Discover cards against Discover cards. Is there a concern, or have you noticed any type of issues where the games may be decided by whoever finds the strongest card in their selecting of 3 cards from Discover?
I personally haven't seen really that problem. Like you only really want a certain amount of Discover cards in your deck. Like I think having 2 or 3, maybe 4 is okay. I don't know if you want to build like the deck that has nothing but Discover cards in it.
Discover plus the Golden Monkey, right? That's just a total win right there.
Yeah, of course. Well, that is an auto win. But outside of that, no.
Can you guarantee me that's
Balance designer says.
Yeah, if I don't win with Golden Monkey, then should I put in a ticket?
I was looking at Lindsay, I'm like...
You're not talking absolute.
I haven't really seen that to be the case. I think, stuff like that already exists. Like Web Spinner exists and Stable Portal exists. This is different, but it is along, sort of the same lines. And I think when you get like the extreme stuff from like, Portal or Web Spinner, that can change the flow of the game a lot. But with Discover, I think you're getting like more of a consistent value. And it's really no different than, did you draw that exact card that we're talking about like next turn, or did you get it from, Discover? It's sort of like the same sort of like probability that we're talking about. So I haven't personally seen that. I've been really satisfied with Discover. It's been very like consistent and, interesting decisions to make. So it's been fun in playtesting a lot. Great. Like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. So.
No way. No.
That's literally my job.
So can you guys actually just take a second and kind of walk us through how you decided to kind of change what you were doing with adventures in terms of like every other time we've gone up against a boss. And this time we're seeing, escape from temples and, like it was so weird to actually sit down and play test in the press area going like, okay, I can't hit face. Like there is no face to hit. Like what do I even do right now? I have all these green minions and I can't do anything with them. So can you just walk us through kind of designing those unique encounters that we're seeing in League of Explorers?
Sure. I think Brode might have mentioned this when he was on stage, but that particular adventure mission was designed like years ago. It was like in our Flash prototype. We had all these really strange like adventures to play through, and this was when we were going to have a lot more single player content. This is one of the things that we've done, and we knew it was really fun. And so we once we arrived on this theme of League of Explorers, it was like, oh, of course, this fits in here. This minecart thing totally fits in here. Let's do this, and it's part of our continuing thing to try to shake things up, as like Tavern Brawl-ish kind of things. We just want players to think about cards differently and play differently.
So you mentioned Tavern Brawl, and there's definitely a couple of cards in this expansion that are like, oh, I remember that kind of theme from Tavern Brawl. Like, have you guys really been using kind of almost like testing ideas on us?
I don't think it's like that intentional, but for sure it's kind of like what is the craziest things that we can do that don't completely break the game, but I think it is a great test bed to see like what players find fun and like what adventures get played a lot, and so the more that we can add that stuff into the game as a whole, I think really makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think there's the Summoner's Stone or something like that. It's kind of like the Great Summoner Competition. Mm-hmm, yes. You play a spell and it summons a random minion. I think that card kind of appeals to me because I'm like super gimmicky, and so I think any way that we can do that to bring more interest like that into the game is great for us.
Do you guys feel like you're rubbing off on other teams? Because we went and saw the Heroes of the Storm panel, and then they explained Cho'Gall to us, and I'm just sitting there saying, this seems like something Team 5 would have come up with for a MOBA.
I think that I'm not sure. Like, I think it's unintentional. I've seen this kind of like, what's going on? Like, everyone's kind of getting a little wacky, and I love it personally because I thought, maybe we're getting a little bit too serious, and so I think our team has kind of like this big backlash against that of just like, what's the like super weirdest, like craziest things that we can do, Like, I was just super excited that, like, for instance, like the names on the spinner, that was just something that I had done in my mock-ups, and that kind of got in the game, and so I think that is kind of invigorating for, just not being too buttoned up about things.
Speaking of that, I want to know what decks you guys are playing with. What should I make on day one? Like what is like the deck that's gonna like because I want a net deck before it comes out.
Well, I won't go like too specific, but I think Unearthed Raptor is a really crazy card that people are going to use. I think Rogue has played a very specific way for a very long time. Like, they have a lot of
tempo Rogue bad.
You include Deadly Poison, Tinker's Oil, and Blade Flurry, all prep and backstab and all the Rogue cards. And then then maybe you do one or two cards different.
A pirate.
Yeah, a pirate.
Rogue is really good.
Yeah, I guess there is also that Rogue, but I think that the Death Rattle type of thing that we're trying to inspire, I think that's a real deck. Yeah. Like, that's a real thing. Like, people are going to play it, and it's going to be good, and it's going to be something you haven't seen before, ever. So when we can do stuff like that, like, that's really awesome. Like, we sort of target. It's never really a power level thing. It's not like this class is too powerful, smite it down. It's more like, oh, how many different ways are there to play this class? Like, how can we stay true to this class's theme, but also like give you a different way to do things? And I think that certainly the rogue cards are going to get you there. And also, whatever the Reno Jackson deck is, that
one of everything.
yeah. That text
I'm
box,
telling you, that with Golden Monkey, man.
that text box is so powerful. Like, I don't know if healing yourself to full is pretty powerful.
That's kind of good.
I was standing in line for food, and Trump was behind me, and I was like, "What card is most exciting to you?" And he goes, "Reno Jackson. I'm going to make the one of everything control deck, heal myself to full, and laugh at the face hunters, and it's going to be great."
You will laugh at the face hunters. Like the coolest thing to me about that deck is you haven't seen it before. Obviously, I mean, like no one's built that deck before. Like what class is that best in? Like,
Against all the rules we set for ourselves.
Yeah. So I mean, all the decks that basically exist in Hearthstone, all the popular ones. It's like, what are the most powerful cards? And it's also a decision making when you're building the deck, because I mean, it's the cards left in your deck. So if you're playing, say, you want to choose Paladin. Minibot's really strong. Maybe I'll just include 2 Minibots, because I mean, if you draw one, then Reno's still a thing. Like, how risky do you want to get? Like, maybe I'll include like 4 of those, but then it's a trade-off. So it's really like finding what's best. It doesn't have to be 30 one-ofs, but it can. So I'm really interested to see like what people build, what class it's in, how risky they get with their like double cards. So it's gonna be really cool. Yeah, I enjoy that card a lot.
Right, because you only have to have one ofs left in your deck, right? So it doesn't count your hand, it doesn't count anything. So if you kind of mulligan for all of your low cost cards, then that can be all your doubles, and then you're golden.
Yeah, we've played some games where
Golden monkey.
We played some games where we duplicated Reno and like echoes of Medivh Reno, and it's like constantly heal yourself to full over and over again. It's really cool. There's gonna be stuff like that. So I'm excited.
Sorry, I talked to the camera like they heard me. I'm doing Control Warrior and Warlock. I actually did have a one-ofs Warlock one time, and it was really interesting because I was like, oh, just good curve, and then sometimes it'll be like the perfect draw, and I'll just kill everybody, right? But what about your deck? What's your deck?
I'll tell you what not to play. I'm a super gimmicky player, so I've been playing like Iron Juggernaut Warrior and Mill Rogue, and with Brand Bronzebeard, the double battle cry.
Yeah.
Like that's like super gimmicky up my alley. So
That sounds like a lot of fun.
so yeah.
Well, I guess kind of in closing, give you guys maybe a chance to I don't know, toot your own horn or something. Was there anything in particular going into League of Explorers that you're particularly proud of that you worked on or accomplished?
I think I'm just proud of like how the team came together and how this whole adventure really came together. Like the vibe is just so awesome to me. Like the different locations, the different boards, and then all the legendary effects. Like I feel like it all makes a really cool package, and I think that to me is the most exciting thing, is when the team's firing on all cylinders like that. That's really cool.
We were all very surprised when it was announced. It was not what we were expecting, and I think you guys really kind of nailed it. It feels very Hearthstone. It no longer feels like it's like, oh, it feels like Warcraft. Like this feels like Hearthstone, which just happens to be
Based
a part
on
of
Warcraft.
Yeah.
For me, it's really the same. Just like every time that we're able to release something, like we've been working on this for a while, so I mean, it always feels really good. You work on something like, all day, and you're thinking about it all the time. You're thinking about it on the weekends. You want to come in, you want to like tweak everything and make it perfect, and you're secret about it. You're sitting there like, oh, I can't wait. Like, oh, they want something new. It's coming. So it's really, really cool when it finally goes out and you get to like show everybody like, oh, look at all this cool stuff, and they're all excited about it, and they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, I can't wait for them to see whatever. It's just exciting time. When you're working on something for a very long time and you finally get to show it to people, it's just exciting. Like, I love what I do. I love Hearthstone. So, I mean, I'm a fan myself. I play Hearthstone nonstop. And I've been doing that for a really long time. So, I mean, even as a fan, like, getting to build these decks and playing against other people, like, it's going to be awesome. And I love the adventures and stuff. So, it's just cool. It's cool to be a part of, this. And, so many people love the game. And, like, having guys like you, like the Angry Chicken, and like listening to the podcast afterwards, like people are really passionate about the game, and it's just exciting. I love it. So I'm just proud to be a part of it.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time, and thanks to Lindsay, who was off camera, for getting us in here. So, and that's going to do it.
Would you like to yay into the mic?
Yay!
Well, thanks again, everyone. Go check out League of Explorers this Thursday. Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes.